Hi, I'm Tom Terwilliger, and we're about to go on another journey here on Brewings TV. We're going to head to the land of sky blue waters once again to visit with Steve Miner as he tells us more about the history of the Schell's Border Batch. So, come on, let's go check it out. Hi, I'm Tom Terwilliger, and we're here in the land of sky blue waters at Stephen Miner's place, the Bear's Den, as we call it. We were talking with Steve last time about how he got into can collecting, and we're doing a little history of the Schell's Border Batch. So Steve, now that you've met Jay Smith, you and your brother have started amassing some cans.
Yep.
You've got a collection thing going. It's 1978 or 9 about, let's say.
Late 70s.
Late 70s. What was next for you? You'd started this collection, so how did you become associated with the BCCA and then eventually into the Border Batch?
Well, once we met Jay, he in turn introduced me to a fellow by the name of Alfred Ravenhorse, who lived in Mapleton. And he had a larger collection than Jay even had, and I was just amazed. We went over, and he was a great guy, and his wife Jean collected trays, and there's more than just cans. There's other things to collect. And she had a huge collection of beer trays, a wonderful collection of beer trays. And Alfred's specialty was gallon cans. He had just about all the gallon cans, and it was just absolutely amazing. He had a beautiful home, and he had his stuff displayed. And I thought, man, this is great. I got two guys within 20 miles that share the same passion as I do for collecting empty beer cans. And so we became great friends, and we would go to different places and we'd sit and drink beer. Well, Jay introduced me then. He says, hey, you need to belong to the BCCA. And Jay, he was number 5204, and Alfred was 7929, and I thought, well, okay, there's an actual club to that. He says, yep. He says, and they have shows and they have all this. I said, okay. So Jay gave me a membership deal for that, and so I joined probably 1976, I think, in that range, 75, 76, and so I joined the club, and again, I was amazed that there was hundreds of other people out there like myself and like Jay and Alfred that collected beer cans. And I began trading through the mail, and being we had gone and did dumping and found cans, I found some great cans. I found some GBX malt liquors, and I traded those cans for, it was just amazing. I had the stacks of letters that people wanted those cans, and so I was able to get some really good cans that way. Well, then we started to hear about shows, actual shows, and the first show that I remember going to was in Albert Lea. I was at the Armory. And I don't think, at the time there was the North Star chapter and there was the Hawkeye chapter, but I don't think this was a chapter affiliated thing. I think it was just somebody had thrown this thing together. And so we went over to this show in Albert Lea. It was at the Armory. And at that point I met Bob Virkan. And he was from Glenville, which is just south of Albert Lea. And although that I hadn't been collecting all that long, I had amassed a fairly good trading stock. I came a long ways from that little Schmidt collection that I had, because being I had traded through the mail and all that stuff, I had some pretty good trading stock. So Bob come over and he says, you've been at this for quite a while. And I says, no, not really. I says, but he says, well, I'm thinking about forming a chapter. And I says, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And he says, the North Star chapter's in the Twin Cities, the Hawkeye chapter's in Des Moines. He says, a long ways for us to go. He says, we need to have more shows like this in Albert Lea. I says, hey, I'm in. He says, you're obviously an advanced collector. And I said, no, I've just been doing this for like 6-8 months. But anyway, so everybody kind of looked at me as this advanced collector, but I was just as green as the rest of these guys. But so Bob says, hey, we'll get together. We'll have a meeting at my house in Glenville. 441 Shell Rock Lane. I can't remember during Mailcomb, but I can remember this time. But anyway, so myself and my wife, Susan, and Jay and Margie Smith, Alfred and Jean Ravenhorse, a fellow by the name of Ed Shannon, and a fellow by the name of Kevin Savick, and then Herb and Pat Kraus from Austin attended this show. And we had met all these people at this show in Albert Lea. So we all went to Bob's. It was a Saturday afternoon, and we said, and Bob was an organizer. I mean, that guy was on top of it. I mean, he had the bylaws, he had everything all written out. This is what we have to do in order to become an official chapter of the BCCA, and let's do this. So we elected officers that day, and says, listen, let's do this, and we sat and told jokes and drank beer the rest of the day, which was a blast. And I think we still have that tape, actually. But so anyway, so that's when the chapter was formed. That day, I believe, was it 78?
79.
79, yeah. And so we formed and he says, well, since we're so close to the Schell's Brewery, he says, I've already talked to Warren Marty, who at the time was the brewmaster or the owner of the brewery. And he says that he would be proud to have us as a group, and since we're such a close proximity to the Schell's Brewery, let's name ourselves the Schell's Border Batch. In other words, we're guys at the border between St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Des Moines. And hey, sounds good. So that's what we did, and so we sent flyers out to everybody, and we started having. It was pretty amazing. We couldn't believe the people that came out of the woodwork. That, oh yeah, you guys collect beer cans too. So and so the chapter just went crazy after that. I mean, we had a ton of shows. I mean, we had 5-6 shows a year, and we were very fortunate because what we do is the members would have hey, I'll have a show in my town, and they would secure the spot to have the show. And we would go have the show, and then afterwards we'd go to their home and view their collections and have a potluck dinner and a few more beers, and it was a great tradition. We did that every place we went, and we got to see some fantastic collections, and I say the chapter just grew and grew and grew from there.
When I look back at the newsletters as I've been reviewing them, you got immediately to at least 100 members.
Oh yeah, like I say, it was just amazing. Like I say, and again. Bob Vierkant was that guy was just, he was incredible. He was a promoter. I mean, that guy just, I mean, he worked it. I mean, and he was just constantly, I say, he constantly was coming up with new ideas. We were one of the first chapters to sell merchandise. We had patches, we had pins, we had hats, we had shirts. And nobody else had this. And Bob says, well, why can't we sell? Why can't we have this thing? And it sold like hotcakes. I mean, we would make 500 of a certain item. They were gone immediately. It just, everybody says, whoa, what a great idea. And I say, but that, this chapter owes so much to that guy. I mean, I was there, yeah, but I mean, I followed on his coattails because he was a promoter. I mean, that guy, incredible mind. I mean, he's hey, if we do this and this and this, and it worked.
And one of the things I look at that the club did back then, which we obviously can't really do now, you had a lot of shows in a year's time.
Oh gosh, we had 5-6 shows a year.
Because you had, and actually the brewery show when you finally started doing that, which wasn't immediately, but that was in February.
Yeah.
And then you had
in the tap room.
BBBS in March.
In March, yep.
And you had Daly Park in July.
In July,
and you had all these ones in Iowa. You
Daly
had a lot
Park,
of shows.
no, that was a show. I'll take credit for the Daly Park one. And Alfred, who lived in the proximity of Mapleton, near Daly Park, Alfred was a great guy, but he says, well, guys, Daly Park is right here. So I says, let's do a deal at Daly Park. What we'll do is we'll have like a Saturday night camp out thing, and we'll have a campfire. We'll sit around, we'll drink beer, we'll have everybody bring a little something to eat, and people can come in. It was kind of modeled a little bit after Weekend at Wally's on a smaller scale, and it was wildly popular. I mean, we just had a blast. And then Sunday we had the show, and one of my best friends that I have now in the beer hobby, Bill Babirick, from Omaha, that's how I met him. Him and his father came up to that show, and my God, we had people. I mean, people come in from with the campers and everything, and camped out, and we just had a blast. I mean, it was fun.
And would I be wrong in saying maybe though at that time the signature event for the chapter was BBBS?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, that was Bob's idea, and again, we took that and just run with it. You know, it started out as just a kind of we went to Glenville a lot. We drank a lot of beer with those guys, and we got along great with them. Bob and Nona were just wonderful people, and God, we had fun with those. But he says, why can't we do like a three-day event? You know, he says, well, you know, we can do it at the hotel. We can have the trade show. We can have a dinner and a dance, and we can do all this stuff. And I said, yeah, why not? Why let's do this. And so now that's kind of the normal thing now. But back then, I mean, that was, wow, you're going to have a 3-day event. And so we did. We said, well, okay, we're going to do this thing. We're going to do a hospitality room, whatever, get together, and then the next day we're going to do a show, and then that night we're going to do a dinner and a dance, and we just kind of threw it out there, and people came, and again, Bob was instrumental in getting. You know, the BCCA president was there every year that we had the BBBS. You know, and to get that person and his wife and all these St. Louis people to drive all the way up here to Albert Lee to our show, and once they were here, Bob, of course, always came up with some kind of promotion or some kind of prize or some sort of thing for them to make them feel special that they were there, and they kept coming back. They kept coming back. I mean, we had the BCCA president at every one of our BBBS shows.
That's very impressive.
It was incredible, yeah. And God, did we have fun?
Well, fun is what the Border Batch has really always been about,
Yep.
and you know, it's an amazing story. And those would have been some great years. I mean, you're fortunate to have been a part of it, and I think a lot of us that came along later wish we could have been.
Yeah, it was fun.
And certainly an awesome way to start off. You know. Join us again when Steve Miner continues this story about the history of the Schell's Border Batch. We'll return to the Bears Den next issue. Until then, Prost. This has been Brewings TV.